Hi, everybody. It's Josh with Talk About Trek, and we are back again for another very exciting Warp Tuesday. Today's going to be a very special one. All of you Pie Chart fans, stick around, please, because we are going to be talking about Star Trek Pie, right? And what brought this about was, of course, the end of the first season of Starfleet Academy. With Starfleet Academy ending, that brings us to a total of 41,830 minutes, approximately. This is not exact, of course, of Star Trek to watch. 41,830 minutes of Star Trek. Now, that tracks to be 29 days, 12 hours, and 5 minutes. So if you wanted to sit down and watch everything Star Trek related without eating, sleeping, going to the bathroom, you would have to sit down for 29 days, 12 hours, and 5 minutes to do that. That includes every series, animated or not. That includes all of the feature films. That includes the short treks, even, right? So, that's a lot. That is an incredible amount of content that Star Trek has put out there into the world. And gosh, I have brought this subject up multiple times in the past, but I really think that if you look at just overall the amount of total media that's been put out into the world, Star Trek has got it hands down. Like there is no other form of entertainment that's out there that I can think of, that has put out more, when you put everything together. So, and anyone that wants to, put something down in the comments that thinks otherwise, you just let me know. Now, this was actually fun, kind of breaking this down and doing the research on this, and it breaks down into, you kind of look at it as the three different eras of Star Trek, right? You have the original series era that ran from 1966, we'll say, to 1974, with the original series and the animated series. Now, the original series had only 4,000 minutes total. Okay, and that was 79 episodes plus the pilot. The animated series, 22 episodes, 530 minutes. So the TOS era, only 4,500 of this huge chunk. Now, where does the majority of Star Trek come from? The 90s era, right? Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and then to a smaller extent Enterprise. This ran from 87 to 2005, and then again we had the hiatus until Discovery in 2017 premiered. So, and then with Discovery again, you have a whole new different era of Star Trek. We're looking now at streaming. Seasons have gotten shorter. So things have definitely taken a whole different turn, right? Now, Discovery comes in at 65 episodes, 3,120 minutes. Picard, 30 episodes with 1,500 minutes. And again, this is approximate. Lower Decks, 50 episodes, 1,250 minutes. Strange New Worlds, currently 30 episodes, 1,560 minutes. Prodigy with 40 episodes, 960 minutes. Shorter episodes. And Short Treks with just 135 minutes, right? Now, Starfleet Academy, I was kind of surprised to learn, is this thing said the densest, right? Because it had the overall average longest episodes. And I really, really appreciate that. Because if you're just going to have a 10 episode season, yeah, get as much in there as you can. And yet, I can see a lot of the run times here went above 60 minutes. So they had a total of 615 minutes of time. All right, and then of course you can add in the movies, and they come out to being a total of 1,515 minutes, right? So I hope you're all keeping notes. All right, we're going to the chart. So anyway, here's what it breaks down to look like, and again, it's very interesting if you really think about it, right? Because everybody loves to complain about new Star Trek, when, as everyone here can obviously see, new Star Trek makes up Starfleet Academy. You can see in the upper left-hand corner, a small portion, a mere 1.4% of all Trek content. So like shut up. Like seriously, like I mean, there's so much. If you don't like it, you can go watch literally so much other stuff. But it's so interesting to me to see how this breaks down and how this is never going to change over time, right? And what do I mean by that? The current model, right? I mean, at this point, I don't see as something that's going to. Oh wait, I'm really loud over here. Hang on, sorry about that. We're gonna turn it down. Okay, the current model is not going to change, right? We're never going to go back to having 22, 24 episode seasons, that kind of thing. So all of these current shows are never going to get to the slice of the pie that the 90s era Star Trek stuff had. They are always going to be the kind of, I don't know, the biggest piece, like the biggest inspiration when you look back at Star Trek, right? And then what's interesting too, and I didn't do this for everybody in all things, you know, but you could also go back and look at some of the other categories, like, so who in all of these minutes of Star Trek, who is the most featured character? And I guess by that we would say, which character in Star Trek has acted in the most episodes across all of Star Trek altogether? And the answer, well, I mean, if you are a Trek fan and you've been watching for a while, the answer will not be surprising. You will know this right away. But, you know, if you're not, it might be a little bit of a surprise. And I do have the number 1, 2, and 3 here. And, of course, what's great about this, too, is that these are records that will never be beaten, right? Because, again, we'll never get back to that point where there's going to be that long of seasons. So the current actors, and I think I did use a lot of AI for the research on this, and I gotta tell you, for Star Trek research like this, man, this stuff is super duper helpful, and it gave me some very interesting comparisons too, and I am trying to scroll up to find them now. Yeah, here we go. So basically, your number one character in Star Trek who's featured in the most not featured, but who's appeared in the most episodes. Do you all know who that is? That would be Michael Dorn, Mr. Worf, and also Colonel Worf. He did appear in the Star Trek films as well. Marks a total number of 289 appearances across TNG, Deep Space Nine, Picard, and Star Trek 6, right? Amazing. 289 appearances. He has appeared in more than 31% of Star Trek. And again, that's like a number that no one's ever going to even get close to, right? So, fairly amazing. Let's go with the total number of minutes for Mr. Worf. 13,233 minutes. Pretty strong. Now, who do you think? This one actually did kind of surprise me. It shouldn't have, but Cole Meany, Miles O'Brien, comes in at number 2 with his appearances through Deep Space Nine and TNG, right? So 225 total appearances for the good Chief O'Brien. Beautiful for St. Patrick's Day as well, right? To get him up there into the thing. And of course, number 3, fairly easy, Patrick Stewart. With Picard and TNG, he comes in with 213 total appearances in Star Trek. So, and it's interesting when you look at, I guess, the overall minutes for everybody compared to like Shatner and Spock. You know, again, just the TOS era didn't have as much time, and again, as the new era does. But still, you know, everyone looks back at Kirk, Spock, and McCoy as kind of like the foundation of everything, and everything's kind of built upon TOS from there, right? So, anyway, we do have another. Let's look at the old bar graph here. What do you think about that? Boom. So this gives you kind of a different look, you know, a different breakdown here, just to give you And this is in minutes here. And again, look at your big three right there: TNG, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, all coming up there in the high 7,000s. And then look at our new shows. They're just down there with a tiny little piece of the Trek world, right? Just a tiny little piece of it. Yet they do get the most the most noise, right? Man, imagine this, right? First off, everybody has always complained about every single new Star Trek show that has ever come out. That is just a fact of nature, right? That's just how it goes. When the motion picture came out, people complained. When TNG came out, people complained. When Deep Space Nine, when on and on and on. That's just how it happened. And the unfortunate thing is that with the increase of just people using the internet and message boards and videos and all this stuff. Um, I guess what I'm saying is it's become so much easier for people to get their opinions and their stuff out there in front of the world, and then make it seem like that's kind of like that's what everybody thinks, right? And I know obviously, and I think that most Star Trek fans are logical. They think things through. They are able to see through the nonsense, right? And they're able to kind of see things for what they are. And I guess what I'm saying is to see that all this Star Trek is good, really. And I mean, if you want to talk about like weird things or things that you don't like, every Star Trek has had them. I mean, there's always been that weird episode or that episode that just didn't work, or looking back at it was like, oh boy, Code of Honor. It's like there's those episodes, right? So I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore, right? But anyway, I do want to bring up this point too, because this is talk about Trek, and the main point of talk about Trek is Star Trek books, right? So, when you first off, let's look at the total comparison, right? So, if you were to compare the combined franchise of Star Trek in book form and then in visual form, what do you got? How does that break down? Now, there's a total of about 850 or so Star Trek novels, and again, this is an AI estimation, so it's not going to be perfect. All right, the average reading time for a standard adult 250 words a minute. One novel takes approximately 5 to 6 hours to finish. Right, which means over those 850 Star Trek novels, that is a estimated 280,500 minutes of Star Trek reading entertainment. Whoa, right? And compare that to everything else, or add that to everything else, that gives you a total of 3,022,985 minutes of Star Trek, or 224 days of Star Trek. 224 days if you wanted to sit down and consume every single thing that was Star Trek related, right? Man, that is crazy. And I would just like again to point out there are so many Star Trek books. What an incredible giant universe that is out there for anyone that gets into this franchise to be able to just explore. And again, I hate to say it, but I think that reading books is like falling out of fashion, or is just being overtaken too much by cell phones and computers and internet, and it's just something that I think a lot of people are not doing anymore, right? How often do you see people on the bus, on the train, waiting somewhere, standing somewhere, reading a book? No, you I mean, maybe we do, maybe you do sometimes. I hope that you do. I would like that. If you see me waiting somewhere, hopefully you'll see me reading a book. That's typically what I'm trying to do. But anyway, I think it's something that's it's getting lost now, and it's something that people need to go back to for sure, because it's so different, because it requires you first off to to stop and focus on a thing, right? And then it also requires you to take and use your brain to actually imagine these things and put them forth, right? So I don't know. Get out there and read a book. I don't know how this started out Star Trek pie and then turned into read a Star Trek book. Well, that's fine with me. Get out there and read a Star Trek book. Check this out. I'm reading this one. This is my first Star Trek Discovery book. This is actually a prequel to the first episode, which I am totally enjoying. It's by David Mack, and I've read many books by David Mack, and I've enjoyed them thoroughly. This is cool. I'm liking this, and I'm thinking what I'm going to do after this is start a rewatch of Discovery. Got nothing else to watch right now, and it's been like 10 years or something since it's been on. Man, I know when I get to that part where she does the mutiny, it always makes me so mad. So why did you do that? Why would you do that? But I know, it serves the story or whatever. Why would you do that, Michael Burnham? How dare you mutiny? Anyway, man, yeah, I think we will do that, because it has been a while, and I would like to revisit that. And then reading this prequel before I get into that, that's going to be fantastic. Anyway, if I don't stop now, I'm just going to keep on talking about Trek for the rest of the night. So we're going to call it a night. As always, my friends, live long and prosper. We'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good night.